Do you believe in conspiracy theories? Sometimes these theories seem outlandish, but history does have a few proven examples that make us rethink the relationship between power and secrecy. First, in 1962, the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff came up with the Northwoods Action Plan, which was intended to deceive the public into supporting military action against Cuba through a phony terrorist attack. Fortunately, the plan was vetoed by President Kennedy. Another example is the Gulf of Tokyo incident, which was used as a pretext for U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. However, it was later confirmed that the attacking U.S. warship, the USS Maddox, had not been attacked, but was merely shooting whales. In addition, after World War I, the United States, in order to acquire the scientific and technological achievements of Nazi Germany, initiated Operation Paperclip, in which more than 1,000 ex-Nazi scientists were admitted to advance the scientific and technological development of the United States and were even suspected of covering up their war crimes. And in the 1920s, the U.S. government even added poisons to alcohol to enforce prohibition laws, which resulted in the deaths of about 10,000 people from drinking illegal alcohol. All of these conspiracies in history have been shrewdly covered up, but the truth will eventually emerge. I hope today's video inspires you.
So the pyramids are crazy, right? We all know this, but did you know, like, the actual facts about them? Like, you know that the pyramids line up perfectly with the Orion's belt, right? The Orion's belt is just a star constellation containing 3 supergiant stars, much bigger and brighter than the sun. You just cannot tell me that is a coincidence. It's too perfect. Another one is that the altitude of, like, the pyramids is the same number as the speed of light. If that isn't something exceptional to you, then I don't know what is. Some ancient drawings even have depictions of light bulbs. So obviously there's several theories on how they were actually built. Some say it was giants. And then the argument against that is, wouldn't we have found their bones by now? Some say it was some form of extraterrestrials. And then another theory is simply that they were far more advanced back then. But, like, think deeply. How do you actually think that they built such grotesque infrastructure? It's such an interesting topic. Do you think that with all the knowledge and machinery and tools and all that, that we could replicate something similar?
This is going to be really hard for me to talk about, so bear with me. It's finna get dark in here. We are going to talk about the dark history on why jails were created. In 1863, African American slaves were freed. They thought things were great, but they really just got backstabbed. Now, as you know, in 1861 and 1865, the American Civil War happened. During the Civil War, roughly 179,000 black men fought in the Civil War. They fought in the war because they thought America would look out for them, which ultimately made them worried, because now how do we keep these people in control? The government needed a way to create peace, to keep the white people happy, but also take care of the African American citizens that just got freed. Before the 1890s, where they started the Prison Act, jails and prisons tend to look like houses. Some like this. After the American Civil War, the number of U.S. penitentiaries in the South and West spiked. So, who y'all finna put in there? After this, a lot of African Americans were locked up. Their inmates population surpassed 30,000. By 1880s, African Americans became the major inmates. They were backstabbed. You're telling me that they helped fight the war and then they were falsely imprisoned to do more labor? Convicts, who were originally slaves, dug levees, laid railroad tracks, picked cotton and mined coals for private companies and planters. Mostly false imprisonment, or doing more time than they deserved. Innocent man locked up for 37 years. 1944, George Steeny, 14-year-old, electrocuted, and he was innocent. We're still living in this dark history, and Joe Biden played a part in it. Your president signed a crime bill, what was one of the key contributions to mass incarcerations in 1990s, especially hurting blacks and brown Americans. African Americans, they were never really freed. It just was switched. Black people were never given equality. Let's just clear that up. African Americans have been fighting for decades for equality from the government. Everybody be safe out there.
I have a theory that the Mandela effect is used to see how much of history can be altered in front of our eyes. Here's a prime example of one of that. There's this woman on TikTok who was going crazy because she swore the Fruit of the Loom had a cornucopia logo. And to the point that even Fruit of the Loom themselves put a timeline of all their logos and it never had a cornucopia. And this woman went hard. Her therapist told her, yo, you need to chill out. You need to just drop this. So she went through all of her old clothing and looking. Lo and behold, she found a shirt with the Fruit of the Loom with the cornucopia logo on it. That shows me, like, yo, I think the Mandela effect is an operation that's running around right now to see how much of history can be altered right in front of our eyes without us noticing. And then they gaslight the public and be like, nope, this never happened.
Damn, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, bro. People are thinking about it very little. Like, oh, it's the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstein Bears or Jiffy or Jif's peanut butter. No, it's much larger than that, guys. They're using this to see, oh, if we can get people to forget certain primary things about their childhood, what can we do with history?
This island in Russia should not exist, and it is the most dangerous island in the world. In 1983, a team of Russian scientists were experimenting with nuclear radiation on an island called Chernaris. When a system failure occurred, the reactors began heating up to extreme levels and ended up exploding. This all happened within 15 minutes. Not a single person managed to escape all throughout the island. The effect of this explosion is nothing like ever seen before. When the first team of help arrived on a helicopter, they saw something terrifying. 95% of the island's residents, which is nearly 40,000 people, were all infected with some kind of virus that came from the radiation. They were all wandering mindlessly and carelessly, as if their brain had been taken over. Here's the scariest part. They began attacking those that have not been infected and started eating them. The helicopter crew described it as a zombie apocalypse straight out of a movie. Till this day, the island still stands with these infected humans. The Russian government sends the most dangerous of inmates on this island to survive as a punishment. None have ever lasted longer than 48 hours. The Mayans never disappeared. It's true. The Mayans are one of the most mysterious civilizations in history. Their remarkable and sophisticated architecture is built with machine-like accuracy in a time where spears and arrows were used to hunt such as towering pyramids, sprawling cities, and temples. They also developed one of the most complex writing systems in any ancient civilization. So, where did they go? There's a theory that Mayans had connections with gods that transported them to another planet. There are countless pieces of evidence of Mayan contact with the Anunnaki gods. It's possible that they even received extraterrestrial assistance to help build the large temples and pyramids. So what do you think?
Can you imagine that 36,000 years ago, according to mainstream, we were like hunter-gatherers just trying to find scraps on the ground and scavenging to eat, trying to, group hunt mammoths and all this kind of crazy stuff and living out of caves and everything else. And at the same time that's all supposed to be going on. This is being written, right? So let me ask you this question based on bare bones logic. If you're living in a civilization where your main goal of the day is to survive and just find some type of food and shelter, do you have time to write these kind of works of art? Do you have time to understand quantum physics? Quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, philosophy, frequencies, and vibrations? Do you have time for that? So something ain't adding up. Either some people came here with some real knowledge, or they don't want us to know that. These people came here with the real knowledge because they don't teach you this in school. So it's either all an ultra-advanced ancient civilization or some non-Earth beings. That is literally the only explanation for it.
You know the Mars theory?
That there's aliens on Mars?
Nah, there's a theory that Mars was the original planet that humans were from.
Okay.
Then something happened that we all had to fly to another planet and live on. There used to be civilization that lived on Mars. Now back this. On Mars, there's an element on the periodic table called xenon. Xenon on Earth is only found, this is crazy, is only found after a nuclear explosion.
No.
Oh shit, that's not even the super mode button.
I said no.
What the hell? And it goes hand in hand now. What if on Mars there was a nuclear warfare, destroyed the whole planet, but people were able to escape just in time, landed on Earth, and they had to restart from nothing.
So we are the aliens.
We're the aliens. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's real shit. This element's called xenon. It's prominent after nuclear explosion.
Ever heard of the phantom time hypothesis? It's a theory that suggests we've been living a lie. The hypothesis is a historical conspiracy theory proposed by German historian Heribert Illig in 1991. According to Illig, we are not living in the 21st century, but rather in the 18th century. Sounds crazy, right? The theory suggests that the early Middle Ages, 614 through 911 AD, never happened, and were fabricated by the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. They allegedly altered the existing calendar to place themselves at the special year of 1000 AD, creating a phantom time of 297 years that never existed. Illig's hypothesis is based on the scarcity of archaeological evidence that can be reliably dated from the years 614 through 911, the perceived inadequacies of radiometric and dendrochronological methods of dating this period, and the over-reliance of medieval historians on written sources. The phantom time hypothesis is widely dismissed by mainstream historians and scholars. It contradicts verifiable historical and archaeological data from around the world, and the Gregorian calendar we use today, introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, is widely accepted as accurate. So, what do you think? Are we living in a fabricated timeline?
The Tartaria mud flood theory is a controversial hypothesis that suggests a catastrophic event took place in the 18th or 19th century, resulting in a massive flood of mud that covered entire cities and wiped out entire civilizations. According to this theory, the civilization of Tartary, which was once a powerful empire that covered a large part of the Eurasian continent, was destroyed by this event, and its existence was deliberately erased from history by the ruling elite. One of the main pieces of evidence cited by proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory is the presence of mysterious buildings and structures in various parts of the world that seem to be older than the officially recognized timeline of human history. These structures, known as megaliths, are often made of large stone blocks that would have been impossible to move and erect using the technology available at the time they were supposedly built. Another piece of evidence cited by proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory is the strange architectural features found in many old buildings in Europe and elsewhere. These features, such as strange windows and doorways, seem to have no practical purpose and are unlike anything found in modern architecture. Proponents of the theory argue that these features are remnants of an older civilization that was destroyed by the mud flood. There are also claims that the Tartaria mud flood theory is supported by geological evidence. Some researchers have pointed to the presence of sedimentary layers in certain regions of the world that seem to indicate a massive flood event took place at some point in the past. Other researchers have claimed that the soil samples from various parts of the world contain high levels of unusual substances, such as iridium, that are typically associated with meteor impacts or other catastrophic events. Proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory argue that the mainstream scientific community has ignored or deliberately suppressed this evidence in order to maintain the status quo and avoid acknowledging the possibility that there may have been an advanced civilization that was wiped out by a natural disaster. They also argue that the ruling elite have deliberately erased the memory of Tartary from history in order to maintain their own power and control over the population.
The Egyptian artifacts make absolutely zero sense, and archaeologists might just be afraid of being wrong. How is it the further back in time we go, the more advanced they get? Egypt is old, like really old. Egypt is so old that even ancient Egyptians studied ancient Egyptian history thousands of years older than them. When the Romans discovered the pyramids, they were older to the Romans than the Romans are to us today. Woolly mammoths still roamed the earth when they were first built. And of course, everyone knows that Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone, or hell, closer to you watching this video right now than she did to the construction of the pyramids. What's strange is that as time went on, their artifacts somehow got less and less advanced. The Egyptian Empire reigned for about 3,000 years, divided into approximately 31 dynasties classified into the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. When we go back to the first 5 or so dynasties, the Old Kingdom, we see impressive feats of design engineering unlike any other. And impressive is an understatement. These are straight up machine perfect down to the micrometer. Like this round vase, perfectly balancing itself dead center on a point no larger than the tip of an egg. Except this isn't your pottery class vase made of clay. It's granite. And granite is harder than steel. That's a fact. Here are the numbers. Here's another vase, slightly chipped, revealing its walls are as thin as a playing card. Another bowl made from diorite, a stone as hard or even slightly harder than granite, whose walls are literally 1/40th of an inch or half a millimeter thick. We have no idea how to make granite pottery like this using known ancient methods, although high-tech machines could probably do the trick. But I don't think you realize how insane it is to suggest that this level of mechanical precision was achieved on found granite using primitive tools softer than granite, the official claim. And these are just a few. There were over 40,000 of these artifacts found under the Step Pyramid of Djoser dating back to the 3rd or 4th dynasty, with some suggesting they're actually pre-dynastic, meaning they're even older, and the Old Kingdom Egyptians just inherited them from a previous civilization. Oh, we're in too deep now, Johnny boy. It's only in recent times when we finally analyzed them with modern light scanning technology that we found out how mind-bendingly precise they really are. They took a jar, did some measurements in a lab, and to this day, Egyptologists have no explanation for these results. The top of the vase was 3,000ths of an inch away from being perfectly flat, something only possible with like CNC machines today. For reference, a sheet of paper is 7,000ths of an inch thick. A human hair is 2 to 3. This thing was a literal hair away from being perfectly flat. The inside lip of the vase's mouth was 1/1000th of an inch away from being perfectly perpendicular to the top, which is a mathematically flawless right angle. And the entire vase was 13,000ths of an inch, which is still just like 2 sheets of paper away from being perfectly circular. These are legit CNC machine level perfections, mass produced over 40,000 times on a material harder than steel using copper and stone tools by hand. Oh, and they might be pre-dynastic before copper tools were widely even used. I don't see an ounce of logic in that. Okay, maybe this one was just a fluke, right? A one-off perfect vase as a result of mass producing over 40,000 of them. So they took more into the lab and found even more astonishingly accurate measurements, revealing alleged machine-calculated mathematical use of pi, the golden ratio, and more, again to within thousandths of an inch of accuracy. That's like that much. Everything from the flatness of the base, the roundness, and even the uniformity of the thickness of the walls was nothing less of CNC machine perfection. Justifying this by saying they were just really skilled or they had a lot of time does not explain this level of precision with the known tools and methods at their disposal. There are even some vases that are reportedly made from corundum, which is magnitudes harder than granite and sits right behind diamond on the hardness scale. Although this one is for some reason debated, a lot of people claim it isn't made from corundum, but still others insist it is. A single one of these pots would have likely taken weeks, if not months, given modern explanations. Shouldn't there be evidence of their highly precise techniques all over ancient Egypt? Oh, there was this, a hieroglyph outlining the sculpting of an alabaster vase, one of the softest materials ever, softer than marble, and totally possible with their tools. But it's been proven that the technique outlined here would not work with granite. Sure, cutting into huge slabs using rough and painstakingly slow techniques using those tools might be possible, as we've seen them desperately trying to prove, but the force of friction required to achieve that simply would not be possible on small, delicate artifacts like these, never mind how machine accurate they are. Some of these vases are as small as a thimble, not even practical, and even harder to make, almost like they were just showing off, like, look what we can do. One theory is that these vases were spun on some sort of grinding tool, for which they have no evidence, no recordings of, but that's completely blown out of the water with the lug handles on the sides here. It's pretty obvious that these wouldn't be possible from spin grinding. Absolutely no one can explain how these lug handles were made, which again, lab results showed that they too were perfectly symmetrical and level to each other to within thousandths of an inch. Later dynasties even tried recreating these jars, and although still impressive, are nowhere near the precision of the earlier ones. This level of advanced pottery is said to have reached its peak in the first 2 dynasties, and then poof, they just forgot how to do it, which leads people to believe these artifacts might be much older than anyone thinks. What if they inherited them from even earlier previous civilizations? And it doesn't end with these. There's also the schist disc crafted from a single piece of stone. Tell me, what kind of stone can be shaped like this by hand? No one really knows what this is, said to be a bowl or a flower holder of some sort, even though it looks sorta mechanical. Recovered from a 1st dynasty tomb, and again thought to be even older than that. Then we get to the statues, and these somehow make even less sense. The face of Ramesses at Luxor. Several of these statues were made in honor of the pharaoh Ramesses. Engineer Christopher Dunn noticed that there was something off about these faces. They were perfect, but almost too perfect, and not in a human way. He took a photo of the statue head, made it 50% transparent, flipped it, and overlaid the left side on the right side. Doing this, he discovered the face was perfectly symmetrical. Centerline measurements confirmed this too. It's like half the head was carved, then copy-pasted to the other half. We see consistent eye-to-mouth profile ratios across all of these statue heads. Something that we'd likely do with like 3D modeling programs today, computer accurate precision. Same thing with the crowns on their heads, and this wasn't done just once but repeated among many statues. This isn't something that anyone could just eyeball, but experts insist they were all done by hand. Professional sculptor Mike Leckie even wrote in a letter saying that his modern diamond tools would have been well worn out before barely even starting to sculpt something like this out of granite, and states that it would have been borderline impossible to repeatedly achieve this level of accuracy time and time again using only the tools we have evidence of. What machining technologies did ancient Egyptians or even earlier civilizations before them possessed that archaeologists just simply refuse to even consider.